Mike LaFleur out as the offensive coordinator. We're going to name 5 potential replacements for his job. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ray. This is one of my guests, Paul Riley, our usual capologist here, but he's here to break down 5 potential replacements for Mike LaFleur. What's going on, Paul?
Oh, well, Ray, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours. In fact, today there's some more names that have been kicked around. Ian Rappaport threw 3 names out, which I'll just briefly address with you when we're done. And I think that those 3 names are absurd, and I'll tell you why, because I have called as many plays in the NFL as those 3 gentlemen have. And I will tell you I never have. But I know we're going to talk about the 5 that I had discussed with you last night. They're in a certain order. I know who my choice would be. I know who my second choice would be. But a lot of the fans, particularly the casual fans, have one choice above all others. And I'd like to address him too, because I think that would be a mistake.
All right, so let's get right into it. At number 5, we're going to go from least to best. So at number 5, who you got?
At number 5, I've got Frank Reich. And Frank Reich is number 1 in most Jet fans' heart. I live outside Philadelphia, so I have a kind of a unique view of Reich. And he's a great guy, don't get me wrong. He's an ordained minister, all that good stuff. Frank Reich has called plays 2 times in his life. He was trusted twice. He did it the Chargers from 14 to 15. He ran them into the ground. That was during Rivers' prime years. He was 31 years old then. They were last in rushing in the NFL. He got fired. He goes to Philadelphia, and here's where I think the mistake comes with most fans. They think he called the plays the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. He didn't. He did not call one play. He was the offensive coordinator in name only. Doug Peterson called every play.
Yep.
And after that, he couldn't get it. He was just going to stay with the Eagles as the quote-unquote OC, but then McDaniels dropped out at the last minute, and the Colts had nowhere to turn. So they hired him. Because remember, now we're in late February. Yep. And he was the Colts coach, and he was the play caller.
All the good ones are gone by then.
Yeah, right. And he, he got fired there. Now, people say we didn't have a quarterback after Luck. That's fair. But one of the reasons he got fired was he had, and I got this at The Athletic from a story recently, he had 28 different running plays and 34 different blocking schemes. And the players were just like, this is too complicated. We can't do this. Right. So I think the myth that Frank Reich at 61 years old is some guru is just that. It's a myth. Now, could he be hired by the Jets? Sure. He has a relationship with Joe Douglas, who knows him well. He would be my last choice.
Yeah, I guess the only positive for me with him, because I'm not a fan really, but he has play calling experience. I mean, bringing a guy like LaFleur in, who had no experience, he had just as much experience as Saleh did on offense, in my mind. I mean, that was a disaster waiting to happen. Well, let's keep the train rolling. Who you got at number 4 for us?
At number 4, I would put Greg Olsen. Now, Greg Olsen is a favorite of a lot of people for a different reason. Greg Olsen was the offensive coordinator twice for Derek Carr. Mm-hmm. And I think that, Derek Carr is certainly an option for the Jets. Olsen is like a lot of offensive coordinators. He's been at a lot of places, which means he's had a lot of success and a lot of failure. He has been an offensive coordinator for the Lions, the Rams, Tampa, the Raiders twice, 13-14, and then 18-21, and the Jaguars 15-16. So basically, this has been a play caller for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 seasons. He didn't call plays when Gruden was the head coach in Oakland the second time, but he's 59. He's currently the quarterback's coach with the Rams. So, yeah, I mean, he's obviously someone Carr has a lot of experience with. I'm sure he likes him. I'm sure he trusts him. He's called a hell of a lot of plays. I'm not saying he'd be a bad choice. He just wouldn't be my first choice.
A lot of Jet fans, keep bringing up, well, if the Jets have any shot with Carr, they're going to be bringing in a guy like Olsen only because of that that relationship that they have. But I completely disagree. I could disagree with that. We keep saying, "Oh, Derek Carr, the Oakland Raiders are shopping him." We both know he's getting cut because there's no shot he waives his no trade clause, knowing what he's going to get in the open market. So for me, hiring him even early, if he ends up leaving there, it doesn't necessarily mean that Carr is coming.
Correct. And I also think, look, could Carr be traded and accept a trade? Yeah, if he's the village idiot. I mean, if you're Derek Carr, okay, you're owed $41 million guaranteed money that you're not going to get from the Raiders. They're going to cut you. If you get traded, why would you accept a trade? He has a full no trade clause. Why wouldn't you just take the cut 3 days after the Super Bowl? Then you can negotiate with every team that wants him. It doesn't seem to make sense. So I agree, because you'd have to make a commitment to Olsen soon, because the Rams staff is probably being broken up. The McVay has told them they can look for other jobs while he decides what he wants to do. So
it's crazy when we're looking into that. Like, supposedly, I saw the Colts were already out on Derek Carr, which makes me. I mean, I think they're going to end up drafting a quarterback. In all honesty, I think that's the route that they're most likely going to go in my head. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but what do you see happening there? Do you see that as well? How much do you take that?
I see Jim Harbaugh being named head coach, and Harbaugh knows all the college quarterbacks because he's been in college now for 6 years. I think that's the route they're going to take. I think he will become the head coach. He knows that owner. He's beloved as a player there. He clearly wants out of Michigan. He wants to beat the posse before they get put on probation. So I think they will be drafting a quarterback. So I could see that being true. But Washington and Carolina and probably Tampa, if Brady at 46 moves on again, are going to need a quarterback. So Carr's going to have a lot of options, a lot. But maybe even Seattle. If Seattle decides Geno Smith was a one-trick pony this year, who knows?
All right, so let's keep it moving. Who you got at number 3?
At number 3, and I forget the order I gave these to you, but at number 3, I either have Bevell or Brady, whoever you have.
Got Bevell.
Okay, Bevell. Bevell is the in-house favorite. If you read all the guests in the press,
Jets fans are losing their minds.
Well, he's pretty young. He's 53. He's called a lot of plays for a lot of years. He called them for 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. The Vikings from 6 to 10, so that was 4 years. Then Seattle for 6. Then the Lions for 2, and the Jaguars for 1 disastrous one in 21. He's known for a few things. He's known for being very successful in Seattle, but for one very unfortunate call.
Yep.
2nd and 1 with Marshawn Lynch behind the quarterback. He threw a pass, and that cost the.
Talk about a call to regret.
And that he'll have to live with that forever. With the Lions, interestingly enough, he was a big fan. Matt Stafford was a big fan of his. Mm-hmm. Matt Stafford really liked Bevell. Bevell's also been an interim head coach twice with the Lions and with the Jaguars. He's currently the quarterback's coach with Miami, so obviously this would be a upgrade for him in terms of salary. He may be the Jets' best bet, and the reason is he knows Saleh. He, I'm sure, wants one more chance to be a coordinator, and he may not get another chance. I mean, he's been with 1, 2, 3, 4 teams, and it really was bad with the Jaguars in 21, the last time he did it. And it wasn't too great with the Lions either. But I think it's going to be him. I think he might not be my first choice, but I think he will be the guy who ultimately comes here for a whole host of reasons. This isn't a great job for a young play caller because they just failed with a young play caller. And if you go to the Jets, you may only be there 1 year, because if they don't make the playoffs, that coaching staff's gone. So I think he's willing. My guess is he'd be willing to come up here, and Saleh certainly knows him. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's the most likely. As we sit here today, he would not be my first choice. But if they hire him, he has had success as a play caller, and it's one big failure. All these guys, I mean, listen, if you've been a play caller for 5, 6 teams, you've had some great moments, and you've had some moments where teams fans hung you in effigy from this third level.
Yeah, well, also if you're, the development of Tua, I know he has the injuries. You can't control that, but without a doubt, we've seen the progression. So, that's one thing that he's probably going to get credit for. And what we talked about all year long was the regression of Zach Wilson. So, if they bring him in, I wonder how much that means that they believe in developing Zach Wilson. Or maybe it has no correlation at all, but we've seen what he's been able to do in Miami.
Yeah, I think he has to win. I think the Jets coaches know their jobs are on the line. I mean, Woody Johnson wouldn't give a playoff mandate. Well, that's absurd. We all know if they lose a losing season next year, everybody's gone. So yeah. I think that they're more interested in a guy he certainly knows the AFC East, having been there this year, and he is has had some success. There are worse guys than Darrell Bevell. I mean, I'm not going to hold the worst call of his life against him, even though it was in the biggest game ever. But Matt Stafford did really like him. I mean, there was some thought that Matt Stafford would have asked to stay in Detroit had Bevell been given the full-time coaching job there. I've read that's how much Stafford liked him.
Okay, and we also, a lot of people want to put a lot of blame on Bevell. Pete Carroll's the head coach. He could overrule anything he wants when he was there. He didn't.
He heard it in his headphone. He didn't say no. He didn't call timeout and said, whoa, let's discuss this. He said, okay, roll the play.
Yep. All right, let's keep it moving. Number 2, you already named him?
Number 2, and it's funny, it just came out today, about 2 hours ago, that Joe Brady, Albert Breer reported the Jets are doing extensive research on him. He is interesting for a few reasons. He was the passing game coordinator as a kid when he was 30 at LSU, and they had that incredible year with Burrow and Chase and Jefferson. They won the national title. He parlays that into the Carolina offensive coordinator job under the unfortunate Matt Rule. But if you recall, the Jets interviewed Brady to be the head coach before they hired Saleh. And so they've at least talked to him. Now, much like Sam Darnold's killed many a coach, he killed Joe Brady too. Brady got fired midway through 21 by Rule. And it was during the break, in fact, their bye week. And now he's in Buffalo as the quarterback's coach. He's only 33, but he has had play calling experience in the NFL. And his quarterbacks have been Teddy Bridgewater and Matt Darnold. So he hasn't exactly been gifted with the best. I just think he's an intriguing guy because he certainly had such success in college. He has some NFL experience. He's young, but he's not LaFleur young. LaFleur had never called a play in the NFL. Joe Brady has. So I would really, I'm not surprised the Jets are doing their homework on him. I think he's an intriguing player or coach, and I think he is someone they at least liked enough to interview the head coach 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I like him, and I like the presence I feel he would bring to this locker room. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he's probably my number 1, but your number 1, a lot of people aren't talking about him.
Todd,
I'll let you say it.
Todd Monken, and I'll tell you why. And Todd Monken also has a little history with the Jets. When they just interviewed him, and it came down to Gase, Monken, and Rule, when Rule was still at Baylor. And they eliminated Monken, but they wanted him to be the offensive coordinator.
Right.
That no-go with Gase, because Gase called his own plays. But they insisted, Rule, if you take this job, you have to take Monken as your offensive coordinator. And Rule said, I won't do it. You can't tell me who to make.
I remember that. That was a giant stink made of that at the time because Rule wanted to bring in his own staff, and they were not willing to let him do that.
Well, they would let him the defense, but they wouldn't let him bring in. They wanted Monken. So the Jets at the time, and it's different management now. McCagnon's gone, but Johnson knows he was part of that. And so they thought enough about Monken, again, that they really wanted Rule to take him. Monken is he was mostly a college coach. I mean, he called plays at Oklahoma State. Then he was the head coach of Southern Miss. But then he went to Tampa, and he did really well, I thought, at Tampa, given what he had from 16 to 18. He was their offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell you the one black mark against him. People forget this, but I don't forget stuff like this. After he got let go in 18, he needed a job, and the Jets passed him for Gase. He became the offensive coordinator with the Browns, and that was when Freddie Kitchen, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name. The heavyset guy was the short-time coach with the Browns. Yeah, it was. I think it was Kitchen. And Monken went around in pregame and ripped him to other coaches, and it got leaked, and they fired him. Now, that's something that is, if you're Rob Saleh, you might say, is this guy going to stab me in the back?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a real concern. I mean, that's a no-no in the NFL. You don't start saying, hey, Kitchen's stinking the play calls here. I should be calling the plays. No wonder we're so bad. You really, so that's a big black mark. Then no, he's in Georgia. He's one of the highest paid offensive coordinators in college football. He makes $2 million a year. He's won back-to-back national titles. My question to Monken is, does he want to get back in the NFL? He can ride this out for the rest of his life as the OC at Georgia, making $2 million a year, probably winning other national championships. He may choose to do that. But he would be my
He's an NFL coach.
He would be my first choice, only because I was impressed with what he did at Oklahoma State, what he did with the Buccaneers. I'd be very concerned about what happened with the Browns. I'd want to have a little airing of that issue, but he would be my first choice.
Okay, well, so let's break it down. What we have, I'll put it across the screen really quick. You got Frank Reich, Greg Olsen, Darrell Bevell, Joe Brady, and Todd Monken.
Now, let's throw three names out there just real briefly that you don't on your screen, because there was a report today from Ian Rappaport that the Jets are considering Callie, the tight ends coach in New England, who is, again, never called a play.
Right.
Johnson, the quarterbacks coach with the Eagles, who was the offensive coordinator at the University of Florida under Mullen, but Mullen called the plays. And then Brady, the old Colts offensive coordinator, who also never called the plays because Reich called the plays. So I just immediately think those are non-starters, because the Jets just hired a guy 2 years ago who never called a play. And look what happened. So I just wanted to address this. It's hit this is whenever we're filming this. It was today that hit Rappaport's report. I would be very surprised if the Jets went down that road a second time. I think it's going to be one of those five people I mentioned, and my favorite's Todd Monken. I don't think he's the likely one. I do think it's going to be Bevell.
I totally agree with you. Not just from their relationship perspective, but I think Woody is infatuated with getting somebody who's worked with an established quarterback in this league. You know, what the Jets had this year, which is, to me, it was unacceptable. LaFleur clearly was not able to work with and get through to Zach Wilson. I mean, we saw the same issues this year that we saw last year. The poor footwork, the being the one read quarterback. We literally only saw regression this year outside of the Pittsburgh game, which everybody likes to throw out there. But again, you're facing a rookie quarterback on one side of the ball, and I feel like him coming back, there weren't a ton of expectations in that Pittsburgh game. So maybe it's up here for him. That's where I really think it is. So it's going to be up to the next, offensive coordinator to potentially unlock that. Or, as Woody Johnson said in his press conference, he said, we're missing. That's the piece we're missing. Once I hear something like that, I think you'll agree. That means they're going to do everything they can to either bring in a guy like Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo into this offense.
Well, and in fairness to Bevell took over. I mean, he coached veteran quarterbacks in Minnesota and obviously Detroit. When he was in Seattle, he was the one that convinced them to go with Russell Wilson over Matt Flynn, who they'd spent all that money on.
I remember that. That was very shocking that year.
Yeah, so he has some experience with young quarterbacks and veteran quarterbacks. Listen, Jets fans are going to be mad if he gets hired, because he's stuck with Jacksonville, and he had that terrible call with Seattle. But I just, at this point, unless I hear something different, I think he fits this glass slipper that Robert Saleh is going to hand off to somebody. Uh, I would choose Brady, Monken, or Brady over him. But I get if they choose him, and he could be very successful here.
Yeah, well, Paul, I appreciate you coming on and giving us your top 5. Let us know your top 5 in the comments below. You may disagree with some of our takes. We would love to hear from you. We might do another video coming very soon, depending on if the Jets do hire an offensive coordinator prior to the end of the year. We got football playoffs coming up. The Dolphins are eliminated right off the bat. Maybe we'll hear some more of those rumblings. I think if the Jets are going to make that move, they're going to make it very quickly.
I agree. And Bevell can't be spoken to. I mean, he's an employee of the Miami Dolphins. Brady's an employee of the Buffalo Bills. Now, the teams that got the bye, coaches can talk. Remember that Brady and Bevell are both only quarterback coaches, so they can leave. They don't need permission to leave their contracts with their current team because it's a promotion. But I think if Bevell, and I think Miami's going to lose, I think Bevell will be spoken to Monday morning.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely do. All right, everybody, that's it for us. Please like and subscribe to the video, and if you can, share our content with a friend. As always, go Jets.